So for more, let's bring in Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State and President over at the Washington Strategy Group. Joel, good to see you. Happy Friday. So this just comes days after Putin had met with Emmanuel Macron, the French president. Macron had said that he was hopeful of a diplomatic solution. We should also note Olaf Scholz, the German chancellor, meeting with Putin next week. How optimistic are you about the diplomatic situation right now? And is sort of the diplomatic efforts here off the table right now?
Baker, it's great to be with you. And right now we're at the worst moment we've been in terms of the threat for a war beginning, where Russia invades Ukraine again. And this is very concerning because the diplomatic efforts, as you point out, have been made. The United States has been very clear. We are negotiating with Russia, with Vladimir Putin. Secretary of State Blinken has been trading documents with the Russian foreign minister. The French are meeting. The Germans are meeting. So there's no surprises here that the United States and our allies want a diplomatic solution. But Vladimir Putin has done nothing to reduce the threat. He has done nothing to reverse his decision to put troops on the border of Ukraine. In fact, he's doing the opposite and really now doing war games in what looks like preparation. So we're at a very serious moment.
Yeah, I'm glad. And we have this great graphic that we're showing everybody about how Russian troops are literally surrounding all of Ukraine right now. And that includes Crimea. This includes Belarus. And then also in the Black Sea right below that as well. I mean, Russia is coming out here, Joel, saying that they're not doing anything illegal here, that they're just practicing here. But if you're not invading Ukraine, what's the point of all of these troops being there then?
Yeah, this is classic disinformation, and this is a tactic that Russia is using to try its best to divide the United States from our European allies, to put pressure back on us to reduce our concerns about this invasion. So Russia is gaslighting. It does this all the time. Vladimir Putin does. They have a track record of invading neighbors. Going back to Chechnya, to Georgia, to Ukraine in 2014. So there's no reason to believe that statement. And what is happening now is that the White House is preparing a sanctions wall, is working very aggressively with their allies to try to make sure that Vladimir Putin understands at the end of the day, this will be extremely costly to him personally, to his oligarchs, his supporters, and to the Russian economy at a macroeconomic level, and that punishment will be swift and severe.
Okay, let's talk about the economic part of all of this, because it's really interesting here, because it sort of gives you an indication of maybe what Vladimir Putin is thinking here, because we know Europe badly needs the natural resources from Russia, Germany in particular, which is why I think that meeting with Olaf Scholz with Putin next week is going to be important. Russian gas makes up 40% of Europe's continental supplies. In Germany, it's 55%. So it is incredibly important here. So I guess this gets to a larger question. Can Vladimir Putin move militarily to control Ukraine and also preserve his economic links to Europe at the same time? Can he do both of those things?
Well, he can do it, but it's going to be incredibly costly, and it's going to be punishing to the Russian economy, because just as the Europeans are dependent in many ways on Russian gas, Russia is dependent on European euros and on European revenue. So that's the goal here, and that's the way the Biden administration is organizing these sanctions, is to essentially punish Vladimir Putin and block those euros from going into the Kremlin. And I think that's the strongest leverage that we've seen so far. What we're looking at and what the administration is talking about is different from the sanctions in 2014. It used to be in sanction theory that there would be an escalatory ladder where the sanctions would start targeted and then grow. Not anymore. In this case, they're going to start high and stay high. They're going to be macroeconomic through Treasury, going at the financial sector. They're going to be blocking the gas flows, as we just discussed, and then they're going to go into export controls and different sectors of the Russian economy over the next 6 to 9 months. To buttress that, I just want to mention this, to buttress that for Europe as well, this means that they're going to look to other allies and partners, Asia in particular, the Gulf countries, to backfill on the supply of energy resources. And that's where much of the effort is right now focused from the Biden administration.
The Biden administration also saying, Joel, that anybody that's in Ukraine, that's either at the embassy or that's in America, needs to flee as quickly as possible, get to Poland, and U.S. troops will be able to help them outside of Poland. But yesterday, during his interview with Lester Holt, the president said that American troops, if Russia invades Ukraine, American troops are not going to go into Ukraine to help American civilians get out of that country, because he said the last thing we want is a World War III if the United States is basically interfering with Russian military operations here. So if Russia does, in fact, invade Ukraine, what does the United States do then? What do we do?
It's a danger of living in a world where we have citizens all around the world, and that's a good thing for the United States. There are several million Americans throughout the world. And in this case, there are estimates of close to 100,000 Americans in Ukraine. The idea of extracting every American and getting into direct conflict with Russia is incredibly unpalatable. So what we do and what we see is going to happen is the sanctions work, the strengthening of our NATO allies with military supply and reinforcing with our troops in those NATO countries to build a wall, and supporting Ukraine's military as we have been doing for a number of years. And in this past year, nearly $700 million sent to Ukraine's military to strengthen it as it resists Russia. And those are really the tactics to make sure that Vladimir Putin and Russia, they understand it will be incredibly painful for them to try to keep down the Ukrainian people. And I think that that's where we then get into these dicey questions about refugees. There was one estimate by the intelligence community recently published that there could be up to 5 million Ukrainians pushed out, destabilizing Europe. So we're not talking about a limited crisis here just to Russia and Ukraine, which is bad enough. We're talking about one that can spill over very quickly into Europe, destabilizing countries, and really having a direct impact on the United States as well.
Yeah, great insight as always. Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State and President of the Washington Strategy Group, giving us the insight here. Thanks so much, Joel. Have a great weekend. And next